This digest brings together the Hindu's editorial perspective and the economic survey to give a concise, theme-based view of the economy, social justice issues, international relations and governance as of January 30, 2026. A compact briefing designed to highlight the exam-relevant ideas and policy choices shaping India today. We concentrate on a few high-impact themes: macroeconomic trends and structural reforms, the fiscal challenge and center-state finances, social sector gaps including mental health and education, shifts in global order and regulatory changes, all framed to show how these threads connect to policy outcomes and political trade-offs. Starting with growth, India's post-pandemic expansion remains relatively strong. Current growth is around the mid 7% range, with official projections for FY27 easing slightly to about 6.8 to 7.2%. Sustaining growth close to 7% is important because it underpins job creation and the financing of development goals. And the primary domestic drivers are consumption and investment. A core constraint is the fiscal picture. Fiscal deficit occurs when expenditures exceed revenues and financing needs rise. The primary deficit strips out interest payments to show underlying policy stance. The FRBM target of a 3% deficit has been repeatedly missed, and post-COVID pressures push deficits much higher. The survey warns that politically popular freebies can boost short-term consumption but crowd out capital spending on schools, hospitals, and infrastructure, creating longer-term instability. One reason states feel squeezed is the growing use of cess and surcharge. These levies are often specific purpose and retained by the center rather than pooled for sharing. And constitutional changes have excluded some of them from the divisible pool. The result is a shrinking of states' fiscal autonomy and increased vertical imbalance between the center and the states. That same fiscal squeeze is reshaping employment policy. The old Manrega model guaranteed work on demand, financed as needed, whereas the newer Viksit Bharat approach shifts to fixed budget allocations. That converts a demand-driven safety net into a supply-capped scheme. Employment provisioning becomes tied to fiscal availability rather than actual rural distress. Education and the digital transition create another set of problems. The NEP highlighted benefits of technology, but the survey flags digital addiction, unequal access, and its mental health consequences. Urban and rural divides in connectivity and school density compound isolation and depression among students, and fragmented higher education worsens uneven economic opportunities. On health, India has recorded notable wins. Sustained reductions in maternal and under 5 mortality driven by institutional deliveries and better neonatal care. At the same time, rapid and unplanned urbanization is a looming risk. Without proactive urban planning, we face waste management failures, water stress, and gridlocked transport systems. Turning to global governance, reform of the UN Security Council remains stalled. Recent votes and resolutions, including those related to Gaza, expose how the veto and the P5 dynamics reflect a post-1945 order that struggles to address contemporary threats. The Council's focus on geopolitical maneuvering often leaves broader global threats insufficiently addressed. India's diplomacy with the Arab League illustrates a strategic evolution. From an earlier energy-centric engagement, ties have become multi-dimensional, encompassing trade, defense, and maritime cooperation. India now engages as a strategic partner and observer, maintaining historic stances such as support for a two-state solution for Palestine while broadening cooperation areas. The wider question of globalization matters for India's development strategy. India's large market attracts attention, but relatively low per capita incomes limit leverage. The key risk is whether India can industrialize in a world where export-led manufacturing is less certain. Policy choices revolve around boosting domestic capacity while keeping selective global linkages. On Chinese foreign investment, the survey argues for a pragmatic approach. Leverage Chinese capital to expand domestic manufacturing while ring-fencing critical sectors and data and addressing strategic choke points. The aim is to convert FDI into import substitution and local value addition within safeguards for national security and technology control. Regulatory reforms in pharma are moving toward faster, research-friendly processes. Amendments to clinical trial and new drugs rules, plus digital portals like the Sugam interface, shift some activities to notification-based regimes where small research batches don't require onerous licensing. A change intended to reduce red tape and accelerate innovation. For exam practice, spend about 20 minutes on a mains GS3 response explaining how cess and surcharge affect states' fiscal autonomy within India's federal structure. Balanced description, constitutional context, and policy implications. Quick prelim checks to remember. Resolution 2803 relates to Gaza. The Arab League has 22 member states and India is an observer/partner. FRBM's 3% target is rarely met, and the Sugam portal streamlines drug notifications. To conclude, these issues form an interconnected web. Restoring fiscal discipline is central to achieving sustained growth near 7%, while social investments in health and education must keep pace with physical infrastructure. Strategic partnerships and calibrated openness to foreign capital are complementary tools, but policymakers will need to balance domestic resilience with global flexibility to meet the challenges ahead.